Hey, in this video we will explore prosthetic arts and also spirit emblems. What they are, why they're lying around, and why Wolf needs them to operate the prosthetic. This part will also conclude our prosthetic tools research, so it's quite a milestone. There is a lot of stuff to talk about, a whole bunch of interesting words in the original text, many things that didn't make it to the English version, so buckle up. We'll start with prosthetic arts and then move on to the spirit emblems. Important note, while doing the research for this video, I learned that the English text for some of the combat arts and skills is different depending on what menu you're in. Sculptor title skill menu, skill equip menu, or skill tab on the inventory screen. The Japanese is the exact same everywhere, however the localization can vary quite considerably between the three menus, up to a point where either of the descriptions might be missing a whole paragraph. In this video, I will discuss the localization from the skill tab of the inventory screen, that's where all the screenshots are from. I found that those are more accurate in general and tend to have more of the original text localized. As to why this inconsistency even happened, I don't know. It seems to me that different people localize different menus, and thus the same skill that happens to be in 2 or 3 places ended up being localized 2 or 3 times. That is why even the parts of the text that are present in all of them are worded differently. As usual, we'll quickly go over the disclaimers, legend, and sources. If it's not your first time around, feel free to skip ahead. Number 1, use common sense. Please do not assume that I have access to some secret true knowledge. I'm just entertained by reading Sekiro in Japanese. My lore theories are just theories, so treat them accordingly. Number 2, I am not a professional translator. I have never worked in localization. Yes, I will say that something is translated poorly and something is not, and it will be my personal point of view. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the information so you can see if the localization was good or not, whether something important was lost or not. My opinion is just that, and I choose to share it. Number 3, I am not an expert on Buddhism or Shintoism. I will leave links to the religious terms that we will encounter so you can read more on your own if you're interested. As usual, the transcriptions I give do not follow all academic rules, and I don't think it's necessary. They're just here to represent the pronunciation in case you're curious. All sources I used for this research will be listed in the description box below, along with all the additional information that I referenced throughout the video, so you can read more if you're interested. There you will also find the link to my original blog post if you want to read it through. The original name of this item is A Secret Book of Shinobi Prosthetic Skills. I think esoteric text is quite a fitting localization for Densho. Densho translates to a book of secrets or some sort of legendary book or something that has been handed down through generations. Esoteric, meaning requiring special knowledge that is restricted to a small group, is a good choice for such an item. The Book of Secrets translation made its way into the first paragraph of the description, so nothing was lost. On the other hand, the next paragraph was completely lost. I'm not sure whether it was a space issue again or some other hindrance that prevented it from being localized. This set of skills cannot be called a style, since the techniques in martial arts described here bear meaning only if one possesses a shinobi prosthetic. As you can see, this part of the description juxtaposes prosthetic skills to other fighting styles, like, say, Ashina style, that in theory can be taught to anyone. This text is completely useless to an ordinary human being. The next part elaborates more on this topic in the last sentence. It's highly unlikely there would be someone to inherit it. The sculptor accumulated all this knowledge not to pass it to someone else because he never thought there would be someone else, a shinobi missing their left arm. What are the odds? As for the painstaking research, the original uses quite a curious word, kensang, which translates to diligent study and is made special by its second kanji that literally means make fire by rubbing sticks. Kinda a perfect metaphor. Keep in mind that the sculptor accumulated this knowledge after Isshin prevented him from becoming Shura and severed his arm, and Dogen made him a prosthetic, so the flames of hatred were already there. But he studied and studied and studied and recorded all of his knowledge, knowing that there would be no one else to pass it to, which is heartbreaking to think about. I keep thinking about this scene when the sculptor gives Wolf his research and then he becomes kind of excited when Wolf asks what it is. He tells him that this text details the shinobi prosthetic techniques and then says, I really thought these Shinobi prosthetic skills were of no use any longer. It meant a lot to him to be able to pass this text on to Wolf. It was of no use to him anymore, and he never hoped it would be again to anyone else. And then Wolf showed up. When we started our prosthetic tools research, we discovered that the grappling hook is called kaginawa, literally a rope with a hook. The original name of this attack is pretty straightforward: kaginawa kogeki, kaginawa attack or grappling hook attack. The localization of the description is quite accurate. The original uses the word sui, which means essence or the best, to emphasize that the prosthetic is the only tool that serves for both movement and attack. So one thing that didn't make it into the English localization is the skill type. Some skills have it, others don't, and it's true for all skill trees, not only for the prosthetic. I'm sure it wasn't localized because of the symbol constraints, the type of skill and its name just wouldn't fit the line. Some skills have a certain type, kinda like in Demon Slayer, they have the type of breath and the kata number and then the name of the skill. For example, in Chasing Slice, you can see that its full original name is Hasei Kogeki Oigiri, where Hasei Kogeki denotes the type of the attack, derivative or secondary attack. There is a number of skills that are of the Hasei type, meaning that you use your prosthetic tool and then the skill, so that's why it's a secondary attack. Chasing Slice is a very accurate localization, well done. The description was also localized accurately. I wonder why they didn't utilize this little white rectangle that sections off the part where the applicable prosthetic tools are listed. That would help parse the text better. Fang and Blade is also a Hasei skill, Hasei Kogeki Tsuranegiri. Tsuranegiri is a tricky word to translate. The first part of it, tsurane, is derived from tsuraneru, meaning to add to a group or to link, to put together, and this skill allows Wolf to attack with a prosthetic tool and Kusabimaru simultaneously, or use Kusabimaru immediately after the prosthetic tool. Kiri is a slice or slash, this part is straightforward. I don't have any issues with Fang and Blade because this phrase was actually pulled from the description. Link together Fang and Blade and slice. This is the technique. Midair prosthetic tool is called exactly that, midair prosthetic tool. Midair is actually somewhat of a skill type like Hasei, and we'll see it a couple more times when we get to Shinobi Arts. The original says that the prosthetic is heavy because it is a bundle of metal and mechanisms. However, its use in the air was made possible by the training of its owner and the techniques of its creator, Dogen. The rest is accurate. The last line basically tells you that now you can use Shinobi tools while off ground, which pretty much sums up the whole description. I was really excited about Nightjar Slash because I would finally learn the Japanese name for Nightjar, but then I read it and I was like, wait, what? Why? So, a nightjar is a nocturnal or crepuscular bird with a densely patterned gray and brown plumage that makes them hard to notice. This is basically the description of the in-game nightjars. They are either gray or brown, look like birds, and they are hard to notice. The Japanese word for nightjar, the bird, is yotaka, literally night hawk. The Japanese word for the in-game nightjars is yotaka. The reading is the same, but the first kanji is different. It's yoru, to approach, to draw near. Approaching hawk, if you will. It's kind of a widespread practice to create a word that reads like the word you mean and uses some of its kanji, and then swap one kanji to add another meaning on top of that. Here, the first kanji yo, meaning night, was changed to yo to draw near, but the reading is the same, yotaka, nightjar. I'm pretty sure it was done to emphasize their fighting style. Nightjar Shinobi can cover incredible distances very quickly and either close in or move away. So Nightjar Slash is called exactly that, Yotakagiri, Nightjar Slash. The sculptor took their technique and adapted it for the prosthetic, but we'll get to that in a moment. Nightjar clan in the original is Yotakashu, Nightjar people. They are indeed shinobi employed by Ashina. The localization says that they use their massive shuriken to add force to the blow, while the original says that it is the very thing that makes the Nightjar Slash possible because it allows them to gain this spinning momentum when they attack, and it in turn makes the attack stronger. The localization also says that this combat art can quickly close with or create distance from foes, while the original only says quickly close in. Creating distance will come later with Nightjar Slash reversal. Steel Shinobi prosthetic is heavy as well. By making it the axis of the spinning motion, the same can be achieved. So the sculptor took a special technique of the Nightjar Shinobi and modified it so he could use it without having to carry around their heavy shuriken. On the picture of this skill, you can see a tiny cute Nightjar in their signature feathered cape and a bird mask. Nightjar Slash Inverted Spin Reversal is a fine choice. With this combat art, you finally can not only close in on your enemy, but then also quickly create distance. Allows one to decide which direction to rotate is kind of misleading in a way, but this description is hard to localize if you don't know what this combat art looks like. You can perform just the reversal part of it, attacking someone and then flipping backwards, or you can perform a Nightjar Slash, quickly closing in on an enemy, and then while holding your movement button or your left stick in the opposite direction, rotate back, immediately creating distance and basically coming back to your initial position. You don't really gain the ability to rotate in a random direction, you gain the ability to jump away immediately after performing Nightjar Slash or your regular attack. That is why it is both an offensive and defensive skill, and that's why it's called reversal. Leaping in a spinning motion with Nightjar Slash can also be done in the opposite direction. Projected Force is yet another secondary attack. Hanatsu means to shoot or to send out, so the original name means that you shoot out a slash, which is basically what happens. Projected Force is a great name for it. Each color of the fang brings a different sort of colorful death. Sounds really weird and actually skips a lot of stuff from the original description. The projected attack changes depending on the prosthetic tool used, as well as the way differently colored prosthetic abilities pierce foes when projected. The last part is most definitely referring to the Loaded Umbrella because you can project both Lilac Umbrella and Suzaku Lotus Umbrella, and those will be the different colors. Incidentally, whoever was in charge of the skill descriptions in the Sculptor's Idol menu got the first part right, and just skipped the part about the colors. Living Force has a type we haven't seen yet, Ogi Matoigiri. Ogi means secret technique or heart, essence, basically the crown of the skill tree. Matoigiri can be translated as wreathed slash. We have already seen this kanji in the form of Matsubaru, to coil around, to follow around. This is the kanji that represents bestowal ninjutsu, and these two techniques are really similar. With Living Force, you imbue Sabimaru with the tool's effect, and with Bestowal Ninjutsu, you imbue Sabimaru with the effect of your victim's blood. Funny, but the original description calls this skill a Hase skill after all, because you use it after a prosthetic tool. Fang and Blade become one, such is the secret technique of Shinobi Prosthetic Arts. This was the skill that made the sculptor retire the prosthetic he had been working so hard on. For He's Gone Too Far, the original uses Kiwame, to carry to extremes to go to the end. We have already seen this word used for describing Ishin and his attitude to swordsmanship. He carried it to extremes, killed too many, to the point that flames of hatred started leaking out. So this was the skill that broke the sculptor and made him abandon his research. If you remember, the applicable prosthetic tools for this skill are Flame Vent and Divine Abduction. One of them is fire and the other one looks like fire, so that's something. And now that we're done with skills and combat arts, let's look at the passive abilities from the skill tree. Emma's Medicine is a set of 2 passive skills. The art book gives the description of the set separately and then doesn't repeat it in the descriptions of Potency or Aroma, so we'll discuss it here just once. It's the first 2 paragraphs of the in-game descriptions that remain the same in both skills. The original name for Emma's Medicine is Emma no Yakushiki, and it took me a while to understand what yakushiki even means because the dictionaries are kind of obscure about it and I had to read some articles. So the word consists of kusuri, medicine, and shiki, knowledge. As far as I learned, this word describes a type of medical knowledge where the patient, most often, not only knows what medicine to take to alleviate their condition, but how exactly it functions, what it does to the body, and why it helps the way it does. Basically, you not only know that you need to take this particular pill to help with your headache, but you know exactly why it helps, what processes it triggers, and what it does to your body. So this is not really Emma's medicine, but rather Emma's medical knowledge. Long ago, Emma shared with the sculptor her knowledge about medicine. The first one is Potency. Its original name is Kikigusuri, effective medicine. Kiki means effectiveness, so I think potency is a great name for it. The way the third paragraph is written and the way it is indented really gives off the direct speech impression, as if this is something Emma could have told the sculptor while teaching him. Let's explore the flavor of the medicine by tasting it thoroughly. The medicinal effect will increase if the body memorizes it. The last part is really funny. However, it often happens that the so-called medicine tastes awful. It's like a little sculptor's note that some medicine is disgusting, and if that's not bad as it is, Emma makes him savor it and memorize this horrible taste to enhance his potency. Poor sculptor. I bet the Shinobi training was much more pleasant. The same thing with Aroma, kagigusuri, aromatic medicine. Kagu means to sniff or to smell. The description mirrors the one from Potency, only now the poor sculptor has to carefully smell the medicine and memorize the aroma. However, it often happens that the so-called medicine stinks horribly. It is so heartwarming that Emma also supported Sculptor's research along with her father and taught him about healing and medicine, even though he wasn't always happy in the process. I feel like from these descriptions, I'm actually learning more about their relationship than I do from dialogues. And now we're going to seamlessly transition into the second part of this video, Spirit Emblems. We briefly touched on them in the very first video about sugars and spirit falls way back when, but now it's time to discuss them in a little bit more detail. So, what are katashiro? The Japanese word for a spirit emblem is katashiro, literally substitutional form. I will just call it katashiro from now on. Katashiro is a part of Shinto religion, and katashiro have been used for thousands of years since ancient times. Basically, a katashiro is a vessel that serves multiple purposes, hence substitutional form meaning. Firstly, it is a type of yorishiro, an object capable of attracting spirits, kami, and housing them inside. It is said that kami prefer to possess items that have form because it's easier for them. Once a yorishiro item is inhabited by a kami, it is called a shintai or a goshintai. Haven't we come across this word somewhere? Yes, we have. This word described dried serpent viscera housed in a shrine where the white serpent dwells. This item was a goshintai, a yorishiro vessel possessed by a kami. Katashiro items, usually paper or straw human-like dolls, can also be vessels for the spirits of the deceased. However, the most widespread katashiro practice is to use it like a vessel for evil and kegare and then purify it. Kegare is yet another important Shinto term that refers to the state of impurity or defilement that might be caused by coming in contact with death or disease, and it needs to be lifted through purification rites. There are a number of ways people conducted purification rites with katashiro throughout history. In the ancient times, exorcists called onmyoji would perform the purification rites. At specific dates, shrine visitors would make a katashiro at home, write their name and age on it, and then give it to a Shinto priest of their shrine, who would then perform the rite by casting the katashiro adrift, thus saving the visitors from misfortunes and disasters. During Heian period, nobles of the imperial court had their own onmyoji who would perform the purification rite for them. Katashiro are usually depicted as paper dolls, but in fact it was a widespread practice, especially among the villagers, to make katashiro out of straw. In modern Japan, purification ceremonies involving sending katashiro down the river is a big part of Hinamatsuri, doll festival or Girls' Day held on March the 3rd. Special dolls called hinaningyo, which are essentially a type of katashiro, a substitutional form, are sent down the river taking troubles and bad luck and bad spirits with them, and then parents usually pray for the safety of their children. This ritual is called hinanagashi, floating dolls or sending dolls afloat, and I'd like you to remember this word because we'll come across it a little later in a slightly different form. This was a brief overview of what a katashiro is in Japanese religion and culture. Katashiro doll made to resemble a human would take onto itself everything bad and unfortunate and then be sent down to the river or the sea or burned to save the owner from woes, basically. Katashiro in Sekiro are pretty much in line with what we have just learned. They are vessels for regret. Floating white katashiro. Yes, the original doesn't say paper doll, it says katashiro because, the Japanese audience surely knows what a katashiro is, so writing paper doll would be weird. If there is some kind of regret, this feeling can take an illusory form that can be seen. So in Sekiro, katashiro are not really made of paper, they just have this ghost form and float around, manifestations of regret. And not only human regret. Katashiro are required to use the prosthetic, spirit falls, and ninjutsu skills. Before we dive into karma and learn why we even need them to operate the prosthetic, let's look at a couple more items that are relevant to spirit emblems. I plan to look at all the balloons in a separate video, but while we're here, why not learn more about Mibu Balloon of Spirit? Its original name is Katashiro Yose no Mibu Fusen, Mibu Balloon of Collecting Katashiro. All Mibu balloons follow the same naming pattern, Mibu Balloon of Collecting X, except for the special balloon that Black Badger gives you, so this is the one that allows you to gather more regret and sorrow. Cool. The localization is kind of meh. Everything is there, sort of, but a lot of nuance was lost. A Mibu Balloon of Sorrow, hiding the water of the fountainhead inside. There isn't really any blessing to it. Mibu Balloon of Wealth and of Possession do have a prayer of good luck mentioned in their descriptions, but balloons of spirit and soul don't. Interestingly enough, the original uses the word himeru when talking about fountainhead water inside the balloon, to hide. Let's look at the last paragraph. When mourning someone, they pop this balloon and pray. Then, when reminiscing about someone, they offer a red and white pinwheel. This is not really an instruction and it doesn't have a subject, it's just a description of what customs people follow. Red and white pinwheels is a reference to the Senpo temple, which honestly comes as no surprise because nearly all Mibu balloons of spirits are there. They either just lie around Mount Kongo or drop from Senpo assassins, or from some Senpo monks, which is very lore because they had been killing a lot of children and the land accumulated a lot of sorrow and regret. I wonder if assassins and monks carrying around spirit balloons means to imply that they mourn the dead children even though they deem their deaths necessary for their quest. After all, who else offered red and white pinwheels in memory of them? I hope you remember the word hinanagashi, floating dolls or sending dolls afloat, from before because it's about to come in handy. Ceremonial Tanto's original name is Katashiro Nagashi, floating Katashiro or sending Katashiro afloat. It's so cool. Of course, there was no way to localize this properly because Katashiro is a religious and cultural concept and Nagashi is basically a whole phrase in one word, so this item was named Ceremonial Tanto, which it totally is, the description says so. Originally, this tanto was used in Katashiro Nagashi. People would cut out their katashiro with the white blade and send them down the fountainhead waters in a ritual of humbly offering them to the dragon. The verb tatematsuru is very important here. It means to offer or to present, and it's a kenjogo word, meaning that it is a humble term for addressing someone with the utmost respect. The real name of the tanto isn't etched on the blade, but on the hook part of the handle. Devoted Soul is a good localization option because people need to be able to actually understand what is going on when they're playing the game, and the fewer words, the better. However, we are not concerned with conciseness, we are concerned with the meaning. The first kanji is of the tatematsuru verb that we just saw on the line above, to offer or to present humbly, and the second kanji is tamashi, meaning soul. It is possible that the name Hokon is just the short form of the phrase to humbly offer one's soul to the dragon. In this case, I think katashiro made with the ceremonial tanto were not manifestations of sorrow and regret, but vessels containing life force that were sent down the fountainhead waters to be offered to the dragon. We have finally reached the final stop of our katashiro journey, karma latent skills. Since they're all relevant to our discussion, we will read all of them, both Sculptor's karma skills from the Prosthetic Arts skill tree, both Shinobi's karma skills from the Shinobi Arts skill tree, and a Beast's karma that you get after defeating Sakura Bull of the Palace. Similarly to Emma's medicine, all karma skills have the first couple of paragraphs in common. They remain identical throughout all of them, so we'll discuss them here just once. The kanji used for karma latent skills is waza, literally deed or action. However, when read as go, it's karma, fate, or destiny. This kanji always confuses the heck out of me when it comes to reading it, but I think the names of the skills are read with waza, meaning deeds, and then in the descriptions it's go, karma. We'll try our best to navigate the storming sea of confusing readings as best as we can. However, if you happen to be an expert in this particular field, don't hesitate to correct me if I chose the wrong reading somewhere. The localization isn't exactly accurate. The original uses the word golbukai, and it took me a while to learn what this word means. As far as I understand, it means that the person who is golbukai committed a lot of sinful deeds and carries a lot of evil on their shoulders. It says nothing of regret, it's just a fact. Katashiro are visions of regret. Therefore, many katashiro haunt those who committed vile deeds. So yeah, katashiro appear here and there because we just keep murdering people and taking upon ourselves the burden of evil. The person with arguably the most horrible karma is the sculptor. That is why when Wolf takes the prosthetic and his research, he, in a sense, inherits his bad karma too. That is why he's able to accumulate more spirit emblems. His karma just got worse. Isn't it mind-blowing how everything works like clockwork in this game? Bushinawaza Chisabi. Sculptor's deeds, blood rust. The original description says that Shinobi prosthetic is filled with karma. Splattered blood is now turned to rust and will never disappear. Think back to the prosthetic description. It is stained thick with blood and oil. This is the explanation for the blood from that description. Even though the sculptor took good care of the prosthetic, he was unable to clean it from blood because it just turned to rust. The last line is more ominous than the localization made it in their version. The more you master the prosthetic, the more of this karma you have to bear. Bushinawaza Kizami Kizu. Sculptor's deeds, etched wounds. The first line about the prosthetic accumulating karma is identical to that of the previous description. Many big and small cuts etched in it are not really proof of countless deaths, that sounds kind of one-sided, but of the accumulated struggle or accumulated life or death struggle. You know, the Shinobi lifestyle that was mentioned many times. The last line of this description is also identical to that of the previous description, but it was unfortunately lost along the way. The more you master the prosthetic, the more of this karma you have to bear. If we again think back to the prosthetics description, it actually mentions these etched wounds in the exact same words. It is etched with big and small wounds. It all just fits together. I don't know, I just love this game. Okay, moving on. Both Shinobi's karma skills are pretty straightforward and nearly identical to each other. Shinobi no waza Shingo, Shinobi's deeds karma of the body. The localization does a pretty good job localizing this description. Shinobi that killed many must bear the physical toll of that karmic burden. Shinobi no waza Shingo, Shinobi's deeds karma of the mind. This is the exact same thing, only now Shinobi that killed many have to live with their hearts burdened by karma. A beast's karma is a latent skill that you get when you defeat Sakura Bull of the Palace. Its original name is pretty simple, Kemono no waza, beast's deeds. The localization is pretty accurate. The most interesting part of the original text is a rare reading of the kanji to kill, which is usually read as korosu. Here it is ayameru. The difference between the two is that korosu has a wider pool of meanings, not only pertaining to murder. Much like in English, in Japanese you can say lower the speed using korosu, while ayameru specifically means to wound or to murder and is not used for anything else. Wolf bears his own shinobi karma and karma that he inherited from the sculptor through the prosthetic. The prosthetic basically operates on regret and suffering because it has caused so much of it when it belonged to the sculptor. Honestly, it even explains why spirit emblems can be purchased not just anywhere, but specifically from the sculptor's idol. There is this strong connection between the sculptor, his prosthetic, and katashiro, manifestations of sorrow and regret. I am glad I finally got to the prosthetic arts. I think during my playthrough I often wasn't attentive enough, and I didn't focus on the fact that it's not just a skill tree like in any other game, but the results of someone's painstaking research, and every skill in this tree has a little bit of story. I already said it when we were talking about floating passage, but I still think that the best storytelling tools in Sekiro are skills and combat arts. It took me like 1,000 years to do this part of research and to write it and to make this video, but I think this is one of the best ones. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I thought about breaking it into 2 parts, but it all fit together so smoothly, so I decided not to. Next up, I'm not sure what. Maybe Shinobi arts? Or maybe we'll do some items and then Shinobi arts. This video concludes the prosthetic tools research, and I feel like I now know a whole lot more than I did before. And I hope you do too. Don't forget to check the description for relevant links and more reading. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.